Jen and Ben live outside the main gate here at the Coast Guard Academy. There was a flood of cars until about 15 or 20 minutes ago leaving the campus. Obviously, lots of smiles because President Biden became the 10th president of the United States to deliver the keynote address during the Coast Guard Academy's commencement ceremonies here on the beautiful cadet field on the campus of the Coast Guard. And it's a place that President Biden is familiar with. President Joe Biden was back at the United States Coast Guard Academy for the first time since delivering a commencement address as vice president in 2013.
Thank you. Hello, Coast Guard Academy.
And before he got too far along today, he requested a salute.
Cadets, stand up, turn around, and salute your parents. Get up, 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 up.
But the president also saluted the cadets.
This past year, there can be no doubt, Class of 21 is ready for whatever its mission may be.
President Biden emphasized the importance of the Coast Guard in the nation's economic and national security.
Whether it's interdicting illicit drug shipments at sea before they enter the United States, or your stewardship of the environment, the Coast Guard has always recognized the broader definition of our national security.
And he brought up the 2020 hurricane season, which featured 30 named storms.
But with the pace of climate change accelerating, we're seeing more frequent and more intense storms and call for you to respond.
The president highlighted the Coast Guard's need to help keep peace on the waterways throughout the world.
Whether that's the South China Sea, the Arabian Gulf, and increasingly the Arctic.
And before leaving, the class gave the president a gift, a mounted ceremonial sword, like those given out when someone becomes a commissioned officer in the Coast Guard.
I hope I won't need this anytime soon.
It's unclear before he boarded Air Force One today whether or not he had to check that sword at the gate or it could be carry-on luggage. We're live here outside the Coast Guard Academy's front gates. I'm Tony Terzi, 561 News.